Good afternoon, Cia. How are you?
I'm excellent. How are you?
I see you're smiling, huh? It's a new day.
I'm happy. Yeah.
All right, let's see. So first of all, give us like a brief bio of who you are and what you do, because I want to lean in heavy on one of the largest, if not the biggest problem for New York City residents, which is housing. But I want to leave you to just give me a quick bio for those
Okay.
that don't know who you are, if you don't mind.
Of course. My name is Cea Weaver, and I'm the Executive Director of Housing Justice for All and the New York State Tenant Bloc. They are sibling organizations that work together to strengthen pro-tenant public policy in Albany and in New York City, and in cities across the state, to build tenant organizations across New York State, and to elect pro-tenant candidates, tenants and their allies, to office in New York State.
And let's talk a bit about a friend. I mean, I got to know many years ago Michael McKee.
Oh yeah.
May he
I
rest
think
in
he's,
peace. What was the relationship between your organization and Tenants Bloc?
Tenants PAC was on the steering committee of Housing Justice for All, and they are a longtime member of our organization. So we do slightly different things. We are a coalition, so our organization is made up of many different organizations, including Tenants PAC. Tenants PAC works to raise money for pro-tenant candidates and endorses pro-tenant candidates. We are not focused on fundraising. We're not a PAC, we're a C4 membership organization. And so we're more focused on field and get out the vote efforts and tenants talking to tenants about the candidates who stand with them and what we need to see passed in the state legislature in Albany and the halls of city government.
Thoughts on the ballot referendums that passed, right? Two through five,
Hmm.
that were essentially, and please correct me if I'm wrong. Again, it had a lot to do with the council member deference on last use. I want to hear what your thoughts on the ultimate outcome. And do you think that those changes or those ballot referendums, what is the impact? Does that sort of, put a dent in it, the housing problem, the housing crisis, or help with affordability? What's your analysis on one, the outcome, and two, what it means for people that constantly say, I'm working class, middle class, or working poor or poor, and I can't afford to pay my bills and my rent.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Great
Thanks for
question.
sharing.
Thanks.
The truth is that New York City needs both tenant protections and more housing in order to make a dent in the housing crisis. And in the last 5 years, I'm very proud of the work that Housing Justice for All has led to strengthen tenant protections, most notably the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act of 2019. And in 2024, we passed good cause eviction, the biggest expansion of tenant protections in New York City's in the last 50 years. Um, because of that, almost every renter in New York City has a right to renew their lease. There are too many people cut out, of course, and we need to keep making those laws stronger. But in a lot of ways, tenants have become protected from some of the speculative displacement that does happen when neighborhoods gentrify and when capital flows into neighborhoods. Um, I think that we have done a lot to strengthen tenant protections, like I said, but we need more tools to fight displacement and we need more tools to build. Um, Community control is not always progressive and it doesn't always lead to more democratic or good outcomes. Our planning process in New York is extraordinarily difficult. And that means that only the largest, most luxury developers can work it through the pipeline. And so I think the ballot measures, I'm happy to see that they passed, and I think that they will make it easier to build publicly financed, publicly controlled affordable housing while preserving the existing ULURP process for the privately financed projects. Um, I think that they will help our incoming administration deliver on his priorities of building public sector-led housing for working class New Yorkers at a range of incomes. And I am, yeah, I think, in terms of your question of do these ballot measures like lead to more affordability, the things that I would say is like, um, right now, the deep vacancy rate in the city means that tenants don't have as much power as a class as they should. Our landlords have way too much power over our lives. Um, the ballot measures only speed up the process for housing that's going to have some affordability in it, and mostly speed up the process for projects that are 100% affordable and 100% city financed. And the last thing that I would say is that the zoning code is trying to do way too much. We use it in New York City to do way too much. If you really want to fight for affordability, we need capital investments in the city's budget. So I'm so glad to see the results of last night's election, because I think that the incoming administration is going to be really committed to using the city's budget to tackle the housing crisis and build a more equitable city.
So yeah, let's talk about what what is the affordable housing stock in New York City? NYCHA? And
You know,
correct me, wait, correct me. I'm, and/or stock and/or tools.
mhm.
NYCHA, Section 8 vouchers. There's rent control, rent stabilized, till buildings, which I want to hear more on, because that's another thing that there are a lot of longtime New York City residents that's something that's sort of unresolved, or maybe it was resolved. And then the age-old question of what is affordable, meaning, oh, Mitchell Lama, I forgot Mitchell Lama. And then the other thing is what constitutes affordability when the AMI takes into consideration Rockland and suburban parts of the New York State, right? It includes higher income communities. So there, I've heard it many a times. I went on HPD, I saw it in the daily news. I can't afford, this is not affordable for a family of 2 or 3. And
Yeah,
I've heard, I'm a school teacher, my husband's a police officer, a firefighter. I still can't afford to live in New York City.
yeah,
So
it's
I
a real.
want you to help me, educate me on what this means. And what is affordable technically, and
Yeah.
what is available for people?
So you
Very
describe
long question. I'm sorry,
the
very
big
long.
question. You describe what we have in New York City as quite a complicated terrain of some of the most robust and sophisticated affordable housing programs in the country. So in a lot of ways, New York is doing everything, it's doing an extraordinarily good job at using the tools at our disposal, financing, building, tenant protections, rental assistance, public housing, public development to tackle this crisis. And of course, we need to be doing more because it remains entrenched. Um, you know, the AMI conversation, I'm going to try to borrow an analogy. This is my first time ever using it, so it might be a little awkward. You tell me if it makes sense. Area median income is just a descriptor. If you change the definition of AMI, the housing will not become more affordable. You're just going to be calling a unit that rents for $2,500 a month 60% of AMI instead of 100% of AMI. I'm getting those numbers wrong, so don't get too committed to the numbers. But AMI is just how the unit is being described. It's a little bit like if we decided that we wanted to change the calendar to have there be 6 months a year instead of 12 months a year, and then all of a sudden we think that like rent is going to be less. You would just then have to pay your rent twice a month if we did that. Um, Changing the definition of AMI will do nothing to change how affordable housing is in New York City. The only thing that can do that is if we are investing more money in making housing more affordable. That's the bottom line, is we need more tools to stretch our capital dollars farther. We need more rental assistance to be able to help low-income people pay the rent. We need to build more housing that is non-speculative, that's held out of the private market, so that there's not that constant pressure to drive up the rents. And we need more rent control to keep the prices of housing low. We need more of all of the tools that we already have. Changing the definition of AMI will not make housing more affordable. I can't emphasize that enough. Um, Housing is typically considered affordable if people are paying 30% of their income in rent or less. I think that's something that we really need to tackle here Because if you're a low income person, 30% of your income is a lot of your income. And we haven't really changed that definition in 30 years. And the reality is that in that time, groceries have gotten more expensive, childcare has gotten more expensive, healthcare and education have gotten extraordinarily more expensive. And so the idea that 30% of your income should go towards housing doesn't really work for today's economy. So I think we really, especially for poor people. So I think that's where I would maybe focus the definitional changes. It's not on the definition of what AMI is, but actually like why are we using this 30% threshold to income target our housing? And shouldn't people pay 20% of their income? 15% of their income. That's where we really want to go. We want the rent to be lower. We want people to pay less of their income in rent. And yeah, I think that we need to finally, the thing I'll say is that the rents are set where they are because of how much it costs to build. The ballot measures and other things that we can do that control the cost of building and make it cheaper to build and let the public sector being the builder is one of those things because the public sector doesn't need to like speculate and like accumulate wealth out of housing the same way that the private sector demands. That's one way we can do it.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the RGB.
Love the
And
RGB.
De Blasio froze the rent 3 years. And then the other raises were 1%, 2%. I can't remember I can't remember the exact number. Now, Mayor Adams, right? What was it in 4 years? Was it 12% total in totality for 4 years?
Something like that, yeah.
Right? And now Mayor Mamdani, because he's the mayor now,
Not
well,
yet.
he's
We gotta
sworn
make
in
it
January 1st, but he's the mayor-elect, is
Yes,
saying,
he
I'm gonna
is. I
freeze the
love to
rent.
say that.
Yeah, I'm gonna freeze the rent. And there are whispers that the current administration is trying to stack the RGB to whatever. I have a question now. What about small landlords? What do you make? How about their argument that I own one property? I have to fix the boiler, I have to make building repairs, for, in some cases, buildings that are 70 years old. And if you freeze rent and I am a small or one property, two property owner, you'll essentially tank me and I will not have the capital to make the necessary repairs and make this building livable. What is your argument? Or here's the other side. Or you can say, well, whatever you allegedly didn't make during de Blasio's rent freezes, you have more than made up for in the Adams administration. What is
Yeah.
that? Is there any truth to that you can't make the necessary repairs or have the appropriate upkeep in a building? Again, I'm only talking about small landlords. I'm not talking about luxury
Yeah.
related big developers. I'm talking about small landlords. Is there any truth to that?
Look, I think that the truth of the matter is that tenants cannot afford a rent hike no matter what. The truth is that the tenants are struggling, wages are stagnant, cost of everything is going up. The landlord can raise the rent, but the tenant's not going to be able to pay it. So we're in the same situation no matter what. You at a certain point you can't be taking blood from a stone. There's no there. Um, the second thing is that being a landlord is a business. You have to be able to provide the service that the customer is paying you to provide. If you cannot provide the service that the customer is paying you to provide, I don't think that you should be in that business. We would not be we do not keep restaurants open that are making customers sick. We allow landlords who don't, it's very hard to run a restaurant. It's hard to do it well. Um, and restaurants close all the time if, the product isn't good, if people aren't eating there, and also if it's violating the health code. I don't think that anybody should be staying in the landlord business if they don't have the balance sheet and the capital to make sure that they're doing the job well. And then the third thing that I think, tenants deserve a high quality of living. And then the third thing that I think about all of this is that yes, the costs of operating housing are going up. That's a challenge. The Mamdani administration has said many times that it's really interested in tackling, the incoming Mamdani administration has said many times that it is interested in tackling the costs that owners face in managing their property, whether it's escalating energy costs, escalating insurance costs, it's a big one, property tax reform. Paying attention to those things is really important too. So tenants can't afford, so it's a moot conversation. We can return to it later. The money has to come from somewhere, so we should support owners in controlling their costs. And if you don't have the expertise or the balance sheet to be maintaining your housing well, no one is forcing you to be a landlord. The rules are the rules, and you have to be able to keep up with the rules.
So yeah, how would you grade the Mayor Adams administration? He trumpets that he's built more affordable housing than I believe de Blasio and Bloomberg combined. Fact, fiction.
I think that it's a
How,
little, I don't know. I don't know. I would have to look at the numbers. Mayors love to play games with numbers to hit production targets. I will say that on some things that Adams administration has been disappointing, like the rent guidelines board increases, and I do think that the mayor has underinvested in things. The current mayor has underinvested in things like the mayor's office of tenant protections and also preservation of our existing and aging housing stock. On the other hand, I think City of Yes ultimately was a pretty good initiative to make it easier to build housing of all types in our city. He's done things like try to legalize accessory dwelling units in New York City and bring basement apartments up to code. I mean, I think that's still a work in progress. More needs to be done there. Um, and like I said, I think these ballot measures, I'm happy that they passed. So, the last thing I
is
would
it
say
a A to F? A to F grade 'em.
at A to F, C plus, right there
How
in the
about
middle.
how about how about Bill de Blasio?
Bill de
How
Blasio
would
is
you
a
grade
great
him?
mayor. I think,
MIH, ZQA,
you know,
right? Three rent freezes.
I think Bill de
Obviously the
Blasio was a
tenant
little ahead of
protection
his
unit
time.
happened under him, right?
Yeah. Um, I think Bill de Blasio was a little bit ahead of his time. Like I said, some of those programs that you're talking about are programs that require the private sector to come and build. And then when the private sector comes and builds, the public is going to get a little bit off the top. MIH is sort of like it's sort of like a tax, right? Like you can consider it the same way. You want the developer to go and build some housing, and in exchange, they're doing business in the city, and you're going to get taxes off that business. That's how you can think of MIH. But instead of taxes, it's affordable units. Um, so in that way, the MIH program does rely on the values of land going up, which I think is like at odds with affordability ultimately. That being said, if that is happening, it's a good tool to ensure that any housing that gets built in the city gets built with some affordable units. I do think it was a little bit ahead of its time, right? Like when those projects were going through, those initiatives were going through, we didn't have the rent stabilization reforms we have now. We didn't have good cause eviction that we have now. And so I do think, yeah, like I said, de Blasio's ahead of his time. I think that he was a great mayor. Probably, Zohran has called de Blasio the best mayor of his lifetime. I think that that's certainly true. I hope that de Blasio will be the second best mayor of my lifetime.
Oh, so you give him an A to F, de Blasio on housing?
I'll give de Blasio a B plus, a B plus.
What would have gotten him to an A?
What would have gotten him to an A? I would have liked to have seen the public sector play a stronger role in actually building the affordable housing that he was pushing through. And I do think that, he just took office at a time. I do think he took office at a time when we didn't have the rent reforms that we have now. I already said that. And he was an ally in fighting for that kind of thing in Albany. Um, I would have liked to have seen him have a stronger sort of co-governing relationship with the organizations that elected him as well. He did not he did not maintain relationships with the left once he was in office, and that set us off on a unproductive path early on, and I think that is too bad.
All right, I'm gonna wrap this up now. Three things that Mayor Mamdani needs to do in the first year to address the affordability crisis in terms of housing for the city of New York? What are the
Just
three
housing?
things?
Just housing?
I mean, please, three things. Okay, you can move other direction, but we're talking mostly housing, but I want to hear your thoughts on three things. Well, look, it's all part of a larger ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
Because if you don't have fair wages, then people don't make enough money or have salaries to pay rent. So give me three things. Three things he needs to do in the first year to address the problem.
I think that he needs to freeze the rent. I know that they're
One,
laser focused on universal childcare, and I hope they can get that done. I'd like to see him work with the agencies, with NYCHA, with HPD and HDC to start to build a public sector development approach that makes sure that building housing happens with us in the driver's seat instead of the development community in the driver's seat.
all right, last question. If you had a crystal ball or if you could make the decision, who would you pick to be the Housing and Economic Development Deputy Mayor for the city of New York? If they
Uh,
said, see, it's your decision, who would you pick?
oh, I can't answer that. I can't answer that question. I don't know. I can't.
Oh,
I don't know. What about I don't know. Nobody comes to
okay.
mind.
Okay. No one comes to mind. Oh,
No,
interesting.
no.
Zia, thank you so much for this. This
Thank
was,
you.
and I want to make sure you got other things going on. Would you be open to coming into the Mamdani administration? Last question.
Oh, I don't know about that either. I love running my job. I love my job right now. We've been very effective on the outside, and I am focused on making sure that the tenant movement is strong so that Zohran can be successful.
Thank you so much, Zia. All the best, and this was fun. All right, talk soon. Best of luck to you. Bye bye.
Bye.